In this video, we're going to go over the basics of modeling just the human form. So just a normal biped, 2 legs, 2 arms, torso, and a head. So again, we're going to try to keep this as simple as possible. So I'm just going to grab this guy and throw him over to the left and really just use him kind of for reference. So realistically, if we look at this guy, I mean, the hands, model-wise, that's pretty complicated. So if we go ahead and hide the hands, let's do that on both sides. The feet, those are a little bit easier. We'll go ahead and hide the feet. We're not going to worry about the hands or the feet for this video. Realistically, if we look at this guy, he's kind of just a bunch of cylinders that are kind of mashed into each other. So we have cylinder for the arm, cylinder for the leg. Realistically, his torso is just a big cylinder. And then his head is kind of, I mean, his neck is a cylinder, and then his head is just a spherical shape. We really don't want to use just a normal sphere, but it's just a spherical shape. Undo that a few times. That is connected with a cylinder. So again, normal human body, just a bunch of cylinders connected together. So let's see how we can start connecting these cylinders together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with this torso, and I'm going to make this, let's do a 12-sided sphere, or I'm sorry, a 12-sided cylinder. And you don't necessarily have to use a 12-sided cylinder. Every character in the world isn't started this way. This is just a way of doing it. So now what I'm going to do is, while I have a really rudimentary, really basic shape, I'm going to kind of line this up, kind of with the height of his armpits here. Line this up to his waist, and then just kind of overall make him not as narrow. I'm sorry, make him not as wide. And then his thickness, he's going to be a little bit wider than he is deep. Then you can see his back has a little bit of curvature to it. We're not really going to worry about that yet. But his waist is going to be a little bit more narrow. So this is kind of a good start for a human. Let's just double check. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So exactly what we wanted. So right now I'm just going to delete the top and the bottom. We really don't need these. And now we need a handful of arms and a handful of legs. So for those, what we're going to do is, instead of a 12-sided cylinder, we're going to do an 8-sided cylinder. And I'm not entirely sure how many sided cylinder we have here. I'm not really trying to look at this wireframe and make it exactly. I'm just using this as kind of a frame of reference for what is a human shape like. So let's delete the top and the bottom. Double click the edge, make sure we have 8 edges. Let's shrink this down. Throw this in for a leg, and this is something I could even come over here, make sure that I get a normal proportioned leg, bring this over here. Now I could even maybe grab the bottom of it and pull it out a little bit. Grab the top, make it a little thicker. And the other thing that I want to do is, we're going to start modeling symmetrically here in a little bit. So I actually want to make sure that I'm not over this center line. Oops, I want to make sure I grab all 8 of those vertices. So something like that. And we'll adjust more stuff later. So now I need another 8-sided cylinder for his arm. So we'll just copy paste his leg, bring it up here, rotate it, and shrink it down. And again, if I had a orthographic view art of a character, I could be lining these basic cylinders up to that. Since I don't have that art on hand, I'm just going to line stuff up to this guy's arm and call it good. So thicknesses and everything, that should be just fine. So we'll put this, let's actually make it at the same height of his, so the armpit lines up with the armpit, and bring that over and call it good. So I actually want this to come down, so this vertex is close to this vertex right here. Just like that. So again, from here, if I wanted to, I could use that mirror tool across the x-axis, all values set to 0, hit apply, and now I have a very pathetic character. But again, this is just the base. You can think of this as just, I can draw Stickman. So again, we're going to kind of chisel away at this and make it more and more complete as we start finishing this up. So I'm actually going to turn symmetry on the X on. So again, now what I do to one side is going to happen to the other. And the only thing I have to be cautious of is if I'm modeling in the center of the character, I just want to make sure that symmetry is behaving how I want it to behave. So let's give him a few cross sections. Let's actually just hit uniform, and let's give him a count of 3. So now this very basic shape, we're going to say this would kind of be his ribcage area. So this one, actually let's undo that real quick. I'm going to be scaling this. I'm actually going to turn symmetry off. So something like this. And now we're going to go from the side view, and we actually want to make him quite a bit more narrow this way. And again, we want to get that spine shape a little bit, to where again his stomach and chest is going to kind of come out, and his back is going to kind of dent in a little bit. So we're kind of scaling this in, and then we'll just slide that forward. And again, his chest is going to be the deepest, so something like that. This is getting some nice curve to it, but again, I can adjust this at any time really. We're just setting up kind of the basics of good geometry here. There we go. So from here, what I'm going to do is I need to somehow connect my arms to my chest and then my legs to my little torso. Eventually we're going to build out a pelvis, but right now we're going to worry about the top half. So let's do an extrusion and pull this up to about right here, and let's just look at this connection. So we need to connect a cylinder that has a total of 8 sides. Again, I'll count down here for 8 into his torso over here. So how can we make 8 sides? So 1, 2, 3, 4. That's not going to work. Let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're almost there. So if we were to do an edge slice of 1, now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Perfect. So eventually I can put a hole here and connect that to this. So let's actually model this up, and this is going to be kind of where his chest is going to be at. And again, we can change this topology a little bit later. We'll do one more loop. This is going to be kind of his actual neck. So again, keeping things really basic, and at any time we can come in here and look at how this curve actually goes, but we have really evenly spaced geometry, so this should be fairly easy. So now what I'm going to do is turn symmetry in the X on, because I want this to happen kind of at both times, but if we forget, we can always symmetrize our mesh. We've shown multiple ways of doing that. So grab these 4 polygons and delete them. Now I'm going to double click this edge and double click this edge. And let's just make a quick note. Let's leave those edges selected, switch to vertices. It'll remember the edges I have selected when I go back. And these 2 are lined up. This one and this one are lined up. This guy will be lined up with this one. I just want to make sure this is rotated right. Because if this was rotated, let's go down here and rotate it around. If this was rotated like this, so we have a flat edge here and then 2 edges here, that's not going to work out very well. So how we currently have it is good. If it wasn't good, we could just come in, get from this angle, rotate it from this gray area, or just showing you kind of a new thing, rotation. If I go to my action center and change it to local, now it'll let me use this red one to rotate around the axis here. So again, cool kind of a trick, this local rotation. We'll just want to change it back to automatic when we're done though. So we were actually lined up originally, we were good. So let's double click this edge, and then we can do a edge bridge, left click, right click. So it tried. So let's go ahead and segments, pop that up 1. So now it gives us 2 little rows of polygons, and that seems to have fixed everything. So again, realistically, looking at this right now, this doesn't really look like a shoulder. It doesn't feel like a shoulder, but we can massage that into place later. So from here, let's worry about connecting our legs. So realistically, our arms are over here, so we can't use this same technique. So what we're going to do is let's grab these vertices and just move them over. I just want to get a little bit bigger of a gap between his legs here. Ideally, let's see if this guy has it. Oh, he does. Good. I want to have a row of polygons that kind of starts at his chest and comes down and kind of loops under his legs, comes up behind him, and comes up. This is just a really good thing to have. The thing that we don't want to have is something like this. Let's turn symmetry off. We don't need it. Is I don't want the crotch of this character to just have one edge coming through it. Realistically, it just crowds the area a whole bunch, and it just makes it just not deform as well. If we need to pose him and whatever, he needs a little bit of a gap in here. So having this loop that goes all the way down and around and loops back up the back, that's just going to be really helpful. So let's establish that loop first. We're just going to ignore these legs for now, just pretend they don't exist. And I want to have a loop of polygons that goes down and back up. So let's turn symmetry back on. And when I grab this edge, the edge on the left is going to be selected. Now I'm going to hit Z or edge extend, right click. I'm just going to pull this down. And then from here, I'm just going to use this over arrow and move it in, because again, we want this to be a little bit more narrow. Z for edge extend, or click the button over there. Do it again. Edge extend, W to move. Do it again. You can see I'm just curling this right back up around into itself. Edge extend, do it again. So now I need to worry about connecting this to this, and this should be fairly easy. I can just grab these vertices, move them in place, get them pretty close, grab these ones, move them back, just get them fairly close. Then I can just lasso select. I have 2 vertices selected, vertex, join average. Grab these 2, join average. Now we have a little loop that comes down and around, and this is going to be where his leg is going to connect. So let's see how many loops we have. We have edges. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. How convenient. Our leg was 8 edges around. So let's say that we had a leg that was 10 edges around. What we could do is just evenly distribute a few more edges in here. So I could probably just grab this, bevel it, have it set to a roundness level of 1. Now double click, turn symmetry off. We only want to see one of these. And now I have 10 edges. If I needed 11 edges, I could add a loop here and maybe add a loop here. Now I have a total of 12. Again, if I needed 14, I could keep cutting this up. So the same mentality holds true, just undoing back to where we were. But this is going to be good for this guy's pelvis. And then at any time I can come in here, let's turn symmetry back on. I can kind of massage these vertices into place and get them evenly distributed and more how I'd like them. So let's look at his leg. He kind of has this where it comes down and his leg comes up right here. You can think of his his hip would be right here. His leg's going to connect right here. So this is going to work out just fine. I can maybe even grab this, bring it up a little bit, grab these ones, bring them down. So again, keeping this really simple. Now let's hit U to unhide. And now let's see where our legs line up. We have one vertex here and one vertex here. That works just fine. So let's pull these legs down, double click, so 16 and 16, total of 32 edges right here. Let's do that bridge command, right click. We still have our segment set to 2, and this kind of handles that area, the extra segment here. It handles that area, so it's not just straight, and we can kind of start turning this into his thighs and hips. But again, the base geometry for him is there. So now what we need to do is make a head. So again, we've gotten lucky so far with the arms and the legs, and those just conveniently worked out. And I don't know if we're going to get so lucky with the head. So let's just start this and see where it goes. So again, the shapes, his chest needs a bunch of work. It has a right angle to it. Doesn't have the natural curve like this guy's chest. His back, same thing. Overall, he needs a lot of work, but the geometry that's there is going to be easy for us to work with. So for his head, I'm going to make a sphere, but I actually don't want our typical globe sphere. I don't want to deal with all these triangles on the top, all these triangles on the bottom. So let's try, instead of a globe, let's try a quad ball. We have this right here, it says subdivision level. Let's increase that 1, 2 times. Now let's try 3 times, because again, we're going to want that symmetry line. So it has a line going down the middle. If it's at 2, it doesn't really have that symmetry line. So let's put this level to 3, hit spacebar, and call that good. So I want to scale this. I have symmetry on, so if I was to scale this now, it would scale down a little funny. So let's turn symmetry off, escape to reset our scale tool, R key, or clicking right here. Oops. So I had this set to automatic. It effectively remembers where my widget is. So if I go to automatic, I just set this to none or set it back to automatic. That should reset it. But realistically, we had set it from local to automatic, and we actually wanted to set it to none. So sorry about that confusion. Now I'm just going to scale this sphere that will be his head down. And let's see how we can connect to this. So we need a total of 12 edges. So let's bring his head up. And let's see if there's any way we could make 12 edges. If we were to delete this, that's going to give us 8 like we had before. Really don't want 8. We're looking for 12. So again, that's deleting 4 polygons, gives us a hole that has 8 edges. So let's actually grab this edge and try beveling it. Let's bevel it with a roundness level of 0. Make those evenly spaced. Now let's try what happens when we do 6 polygons. So 6 polygons, delete, double click. That gives us 10. So we're almost there. Let's undo all that. Back to our original. So let's double click here, B to bevel, roundness level, instead of it being 0, let's have it be 1. So now let's make these polygons equally spaced, just like that. Now we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That gives us a total of 12. So let's undo this. We have 3 lines here where there used to just be 1. So realistically, we could maybe distribute these a little bit evenly. Actually, we'll do this, and we'll just work with it. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Delete those. 8 turns into a total of 12. I don't want the hole in his head to be that big. Actually, when we scale his head down and make it a normal size, that probably would work out just fine. So again, we want his head to be a little bit more narrow, a little bit more tall. Width-wise, that's pretty close to being good. So this should actually probably work out just fine. So let's double click this. Again, we have that point here and the point here. We still have our symmetry line going up and down, so let's just bridge this. And again, there's a little bit of crowding right here. How this is distributed is a little bit weird, but realistically, this is going to be fine for the geometry. Again, we're not going to worry about the hands and the feet. So now what we're going to do is we need to turn this geometry, we need to change its form to look a little bit less like a stick man and more like the human form. So what we're going to do is first, let's handle the limbs a little bit. So I'm going to turn symmetry on, do a loop slice, and this is going to be kind of where the elbow is at. So we want to have a little bit of natural curve, and I can really look at this. The arm kind of goes straight down, and then there's a little bit of a bend here. So to simulate this, we'll just move this up, and if we want to, we can rotate it a little bit. So there we go. Now we want to get a little bit more form in the arm. So again, his shoulder is going to be a little bit rounder, then it's going to come in, and then elbow, there's going to be some bone structure and then a little bit of muscle that kind of curves out right here. That's going to give his arm a little bit of form. So let's go ahead, bump his shoulders out a little bit, kind of manipulate these edges so they work in our favor just a little bit better. And again, his chest is sticking out pretty far, so I'm just going to address that right now. Just pull his chest in. Be careful, I'm only selecting things on our guy, not the other guy. The other thing, if we're having problems in accidentally selecting this guy, we can grab all of his polygons, go to Edit, Lock Selected. Now we can't accidentally grab him. He's green, he's locked, we can't touch him. So from here, I want the arm to get a little bit thinner this way, but then still be thicker this way. So let's go ahead and let's add 2 loops in here. Double click this loop. And when I go to scale this, let's actually change our action center. Again, that's one of the ones we covered in this video. Change our action center, just grab this red guy and just make it his arm thinner this way and thinner this way. There we go, that's feeling a lot more like an arm. And then again, his elbow is going to be right here. Let's actually bevel this. And we can keep it around this level of 3. Oops. I just beveled this edge. I want to bevel this all the way around. So let's hit undo and let's look at this and make sure I didn't screw that up. So if I middle mouse select, it says 16 edges. That's because we have 8 on this side and the 8 on this side. So that's good. We didn't accidentally bevel that. So let's bevel the whole thing. Remember, the blue handle is the one we want. Scale, we still have this set to local. We're just going to scale this in a little bit and then move it back. So again, this is just fine tweaking. Let's turn this, oops, local rotation, set it to none. Grab these 2, let's give them a little bit of volume here, and maybe push this one in. So again, this is looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and grab these polygons. And this is going to be where his wrist is. His hand's going to come out sideways, kind of like this when we make the hand. So let's actually set this action center to local again. And again, his wrist is going to be wider than it is thick. So something like that is going to work. Now the form in his arms, they're looking a little bit thin overall. So let's grab the whole thing. Turn local rotation or local off. Let's just scale up his arm. And again, we can thicken this of various ways. So that'll be good. I'll let you kind of play with that and kind of massage it into place. Same thing with the legs. We can do the same properties where the leg can kind of have that muscle volume right here and then thinner right here for the knee. And then this is going to go thick to thin and then thick again. So again, really being mindful of those shapes in there. That's going to help you kind of fill out the legs. And again, when you make your first character for Project 3, when we get into that, you don't necessarily even have to make a biped human. You can make anything you want that's a character. So let's introduce a new tool, and that's going to help kind of adjust these forms overall. Again, we have symmetry in the Exon. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go to these paint tools right here, go to sculpt tools, and click on this guy called move. This is the move brush. And again, it has some buttons down here. We can ignore these for right now, but how the move brush works is going to be similar to how the paint brushes work. If I click and drag, it's going to move a collection of his vertices. I can grab that move brush again. I can right click and change my brush size. And again, symmetry's on. So now I can start kind of changing my brush size and pulling out geometry really dynamically for his chin, for his face. We can start to just sculpt the form of his head. And even these edges right here, I can start redistributing these, kind of sliding them along the back. Because again, normally we want to have our polygons as evenly spaced as possible. But we had to, let's actually go ahead and unlock him. And we'll just hide him, just so he's not in the way. And again, hit that move brush, right click to change my brush size. But saying when we added all those extra edge loops, we kind of did some crowding of some edges here. So I'm just uncrowding those edges. Again, our symmetry line here, we can move this edge left and right, but this one is on the center. So it actually can't move left and right, it can only move up and down. But realistically, we're uncrowding these center edges. That are on the side here, and just sliding these around and redistributing. Because again, these ones are a little bit wider, so when we start to move these over, they all start to even out. And again, from here I can change the form of his head in pretty much any way that I want. Same thing with his neck. I can come in here, make his chest a little bit bigger, modify his hips here, and this is just really easy to go in, and I don't have to select a bunch of vertices and kind of move these one at a time. I can just kind of manipulate these shapes a lot more organically and easily. So again, I'll let you continue refining this. Just get the shape of his legs better. His arms are looking pretty good as is. Maybe do a little bit to his head. Again, technically you could come in here and start modeling a nose and eyes and stuff like that. But realistically, we want to keep this kind of rudimentary form. And then save this out, upload it to Google Drive. I would save out a screenshot as well. So again, the screenshot, the 3D file is a FBX. Upload it to Google Drive and you'll be set for this. The other thing, I would just save this out as a just working Modo file that you could use. Go ahead and rename this base human. And we'll just go in, we'll leave him in, we'll just leave him hidden. But save this out and potentially use it for some of your different projects, use it for other classes. It's just really good to have really rudimentary human forms like this. And then later we can chisel and add more detail and give them a bunch of gear and clothing and stuff. But just having a really basic human is really valuable to have.